Your mind is the most powerful tool you have. But what if I told you that you are probably using it against yourself? You know you should study, but you keep scrolling. You know you should work out, but you keep delaying it. You know exactly what you need to do, yet somehow your brain always finds a reason not to do it. And then you blame yourself. You call yourself lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated. But what if you are not actually lacking discipline? What if you have simply never learned how to control the system that is controlling you? Because your brain is constantly because you could have comfort, fear, habits, rewards, emotions, and instant gratification. And if your own mind can manipulate you every single day without you noticing, then why not learn how to manipulate it back? Not through self-hatred, not through fake motivation, but by understanding the mechanisms that control your behavior and deliberately turning them in your favor. Because once you understand how your mind manipulates you, you can finally learn how to manipulate your own mind in Trojans. Self-manipulation sounds dangerous, but the truth is that you are already doing it every single day. The decision you make changes the way your brain sees you. Every habit you repeat strengthens a pattern. Every excuse you accept becomes easier to repeat, and every promise you keep becomes evidence of the person you are becoming. The difference is that most people do this unconsciously. They let their environment, their impulses, and their habits decide who they become. But what happens when you become conscious of the process? What happens when you stop fighting your mind and start understanding it? That is where self-manipulation begins. Not by controlling every thought, but by learning how to influence the thoughts and behaviors that control your actions. And there are 10 powerful principles you can use to do exactly that. Tactic 1: recreate yourself. Most people say that they are trying to become disciplined, but there is a problem with that sentence. You are still identifying as someone who is not disciplined. You are still identifying as someone who is not disciplined. You are telling yourself that discipline belongs to some future version of you. Someone you will become someday. After you work harder, after your brain does not only respond to what you want, it also responds to who you believe you are. So instead of saying that you want to become disciplined, create an identity that your actions have to prove. Do not say, I want to study more. Say, I am someone who keeps promises to himself. Now every decision becomes evidence. You said you would study for an hour, then study. You said you would train, then train. You said you would stop scrolling, then stop. You are no longer trying to convince yourself that you will change. You are collecting evidence. Every time you keep a promise, your brain receives another signal. This is who I am. And eventually, discipline stops feeling like something you are trying to achieve. It becomes something that contradicts your identity to abandon. Tack it. 2. Concentrate your forces. One of the biggest reasons people never make progress is because they attack everything at once. Study, gym, business, coding, reading, sleep, social media, self-improvement. Everything becomes a priority. Nothing becomes a priority. Nothing receives enough attention to create real change. Your attention is divided across too many different battles. So stop asking yourself how you are going to fix your entire battles. So stop asking yourself life. Ask yourself one question. What is the most important thing right now? Choose one target, one battle, one block of concentrated effort for the next hour. Everything else can disappear. No notifications, no multitasking, no jumping between 5 different goals. Just one target, because scattered effort feels productive, but concentrated effort feels productive. But concentrated effort creates change. You do not always need to work harder. Sometimes you simply need to stop dividing your attention. Think about the times you procrastinated for a year. Think about the times you think about an entire day and then suddenly finished everything in the final hour. What changed? The task did not change. You did not suddenly become a completely different person. The deadline simply became real. There was finally a clock, a consequence, a finish line. So create that urgency yourself. Instead of telling yourself that you will finish something tonight, give yourself a specific window. Tell yourself that you have 50 minutes, and in those 50 minutes, you need to finish 25 questions. Now your brain does not see an unlimited future. It sees a limited unfuted. It sees. Changes the way you respond. The goal is not to constantly stress yourself. The goal is to remove the illusion that you have unlimited time. Because when time feels unlimited, your brain can always say later. But when the window becomes limited, action becomes much easier to justify. Do not always give yourself more time. Sometimes give yourself a deadline. Tactic 4. Maintain presence of mind. This is where you stop allowing your emotions to become the decision maker. Imagine that you sit down to study, and your brain immediately says, "I do not feel like it." Most people start negotiating. Maybe I will start after dinner. Maybe I will just watch one video. Maybe I should rest today. I am too tired. And suddenly, the emotion has become the person making the decision. But there is another way. Observe the emotion. Do not immediately obey it. Tell yourself, "My brain is experiencing resistance." That is all. You do not have to fight the resistance. You do not have to hate yourself for feeling it, and you do not have to obey it. You simply notice it and continue with emotion, but an emotion does have instructions. You can feel resistance and still move. You can feel fear and still act. You can feel uncomfortable and still continue. That small distance between what you feel and what you choose to do is where control begins. Tactic 5. Plan all the way to the end. Most people only think about the next action. They say they will use their phone for 5 minutes, and they never ask what happens after those 5 minutes. 5 minutes becomes 20, becomes 20, becomes an hour. Now they are behind. They feel guilt at. They saw him, but small decision has created an entire chain. So before making a decision, run the simulation. If I do this, what happens next? Then what? And then what? You do not need to perfectly predict the future. You simply need to become aware of the chain that your actions create. A decision is rarely just one decision. It often becomes the beginning of another behavior, and then another. So instead of only asking whether something feels good right now, ask where this decision is likely to take you, because your future is often created by small decisions that did not seem important at the not seem important time. THCXX Master the art of timing. Sometimes the problem is not your discipline. It is your timing. Your brain does not have the same level of energy throughout the day. There are moments when you naturally feel alert. There are moments when your concentration is strong. And there are moments when even simple work feels impossible. So study yourself. When are you most focused? When does your concentration collapse? When are you most likely to scroll? When do you have the most energy? When do you feel mentally exhausted? Once you understand your patterns, use them. Put your hardest work where your brain is strongest. Put easier work where your brain is weaker. Do not constantly fight your own biology. Work with it. You do not always need more willpower. Sometimes you simply need better timing. The goal is not to become stronger at fighting yourself. The goal is to make the right action easier to perform. Tactics of telling yourself, "If I study today, I will gain knowledge." Tell yourself, "If I waste today, I am giving away progress that I could have had." Now the decision looks different. You are no longer only thinking about what you gain. You are also seeing what you are giving up. That makes the opportunity cost visible. But there is an important difference. This should never become self-hatred. Do not tell yourself that failing makes you worthless. That is self-destruction. The goal is simply to make your choices psychologically real. When you understand what you are, sacrificing the immediate temptation can become less attractive. You start seeing the hidden cost behind the easy decision. Tactic 8. Win Torwaffers. Not arguments. Think about how often you try to convince yourself that you are going to change. You watch motivational videos. You make plans. You create schedules. You imagine your future. You promise yourself that tomorrow will be different, and then nothing happens, because your brain does not need another speech. It needs evidence. So stop arguing with yourself that tomorrow will be different, and then nothing happens because your brain does not need another speech. It needs evidence. Going to become disciplined. Study for 20 minutes. Do not tell yourself that you are going to become fit. Do the workout. Do not tell yourself that you are going to stop wasting time. Put the phone away. Every action becomes evidence, and evidence is much harder for your brain to ignore. You do not need to feel like a disciplined person before acting first. Then let your actions teach your brain who you are. Action is proof. Tactic 9. Pick your battles. Curve fully. Not everything deserves your energy. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to respond to every comment. You do not need to prove yourself to everyone. And you definitely do not need to fight every temptation. Sometimes, the smartest move is simply, do not engage. If an application constantly destroys your attention, remove it. If notifications repeatedly interrupt you, disable them. If a pointless argument keeps consuming your mind, walk away. Self-control is not always about having enough strength to fight temptation. Sometimes it is about removing the battlefield entirely. If something repeatedly makes the wrong decisions, harder make the good decision easier because you should not always depend on willpower. Sometimes the smartest form of control is designing your environment so that willpower is needed less often. Tactic 10 Asuma, formathness. This means staying adaptable because life does not care about your perfect plan. You plan to study for 3 hours. Something happens, now care about your perfect plan. You plan to study for 3 hours. Something happens now. Do you say the plan is ruined and decide to start tomorrow? Or do you adapt? 3 hours becomes 1 hour, becomes 30 minutes, pretend it's that. Objective remains. The method changes. That is the difference between discipline and rigidity. Rigid people break when circumstances change. Adaptable people change their strategy without abandoning their mission. Your plan is not the mission. Your goal is the mission. The plan is only a tool, so do not become obsessed with following the plan perfectly. Become obsessed with moving forward. If the original path disappears, find another path. If your strategy stops working, change the strategy. But keep moving. The system. But more power, take than motivation. You get a system. Re-kick yourself. Concentrate your forces. Create urgency. Maintain presence of mind. Plan all the way to the end. Master your timing. Exploit loss aversion. Win through actions. Pick your battles carefully and stay adaptable. Each tactic attacks a different part of the problem. Your identity, your attention, your urgention, your decisions, your energy, your perception of loss, your environment, and your ability to adapt. Together, they create something much more power. A way to deliver of leaving your behavior completely to impulse, the file realization. But there is something important about all of this. You do not need to become a machine. You do not need to destroy your emotions. You do not need to hate yourself into becoming disciplined. The goal is not to become your own enemy. The goal is to understand your own psychology so well that you can design your behavior instead of constantly fighting it, because your mind is going to influence your actions. Regardless, your environment will influence you, habits will influence you, habits will influence. Your habits will influence you, your desires will influence you. The question is not whether you will be influenced. You will be. The real question is, will you let it happen randomly, or will you take control of the process final? You do not need more motivation. You need better psychological architecture. Build the identity. Choose the target. Create the deadline. Control the environment. Understand the emotion. Think about the consequences, execute. And when your mind tries to pull you away, do not just fight it. Understand it, then use it. Because the most powerful person is not someone who never struggles with their mind. It is someone who has learned how to make their own mind work for them. And that is the real art of self-manipulation.